Hey folks, Jackdaw here. One of the biggest speculative questions I, like many of you, have going forward for the next Dragon Age is what will Solas' fate be? Not what will his next move be, I've already talked about that enough, but what exactly is going to be the conclusion of Solas? Will the next hero be able to rival such a foe? Is Solas really going to be the main villain? What about that final Trespasser choice? And how about some closure between the Inquisitor and Solas? Many of these questions and more is exactly what I would like to explore in this video today, as definitively as I can. As a preface, we obviously don't know what role Solas will take in the next game. We assume that he'll be the main threat for the majority of the story, but even that is just speculation. Nevertheless, we do know for a fact that the next game will most certainly involve Solas and his scheme to destroy the Veil. Therefore, he's certainly going to be antagonistic in some regard, whatever that may be. The Trespasser DLC's setup for the next Dragon Age has paved a simple motivation ahead for the Inquisitor and their affiliations. Do they want to redeem Solas or seek his demise? While it's questionable if an elven god can even be defeated, by this very player choice, the next Dragon Age needs to fulfill this final desire from the Inquisitor. Whether the next hero picks up this objective from the Inquisitor or the Inquisitor personally ensures this choice reaches its conclusion, whatever the case, dictated by Trespasser's ending, Solas' fate requires some closure in the next game. While I'm certain the Inquisitor's final choice in Trespasser will have some sway in the follow-up title, I don't think that Solas' fate will be bound to these two different approaches deemed by the Inquisitor. I think and hope that Solas' ending will be much more deeper than that. This is BioWare after all. Just think of their record when it comes to player choices. For example, in Dragon Age Origins, the hero of Ferelden could literally recruit one of the antagonists. BioWare has a history of being quite generous with their player agency, so I'm hoping for Solas' sake that they will continue that with the next Dragon Age. In any event, let's put on our tinfoil hats and explore many avenues I've come up with for our favourite elven apostate in the next Dragon Age. The Inquisitor and Solas. One of, if not, the loudest conclusions that the fandom would like to see for Solas is a happy ending for him and Llewellyn. While I personally would love Doctor Who Stolen Earth / Journey's End levels of fan service for Solas and Llewellyn, specifically like Rose Tyler and the Human 10th Doctor's romantic ending, which was just beautiful. If you know what I mean, drop a bad wolf comment down below and I will instantly love heart your comment. Yeah, something like that would be absolutely bloody spectacular, but I would still temper your expectations. I think the Solar community, myself included in that, needs to take a look at the Anders stands before getting their hopes too high for a happy romantic ending with their genocidal boyfriend. I wouldn't say diminish all hope for a lovey-dovey ending, because I know for a fact that Patrick Weeks is a sucker for a good happy ending, but even so, I would just guard your heart just in case it doesn't happen. Solas after all is walking the journey of death and doesn't want his lover to see what he will become, both figuratively and literally. Nevertheless, that doesn't mean that Solas will not get a happy ending. I am 100% expecting Solas and the Inquisitor to gain some closure with their Trespasser choice in the next game, whatever shape that may take. This confrontation doesn't have to be Solas' ending. Like I said before, I think he'll have a much more dynamic fate than either kill or redeem him, but besides that point, I would very much like the Inquisitor and Solas to speak again in a pivotal moment. Does the Inquisitor still think he deserves to die, or can Solas actually be redeemed? I'd love to see these questions explored again with more development since Trespasser. With that said, I do think the most trickiest element going forward is going to be how much the new hero plays into the Inquisitor and Solas' dynamic, because despite what my Inquisitor said to Solas at the end of Trespasser, my new hero may completely disagree with that choice that the Inquisitor chose and may seek a completely different avenue. It's certainly going to be interesting to see how much that final Trespasser choice is going to affect the next hero, if it even does. The next hero. And speaking of which, considering we are going to be playing as a new hero, how will they even rise against Solas in the first place? It seems like an impossible task with the assumption that Solas is going to be the main threat that needs to be handled. This time around, it seems like we're not going to have an army or that much power or influence in the world. Yet the stakes are the worst they could ever be in Phaedus. How exactly is our new hero even going to face up to such a task? Well, maybe they won't, which I'll come to later, but for the moment I can only speculate on on a way to defeat the Dread Wolf, and that would involve the Red Lyrium Idol. As we know, the Red Lyrium Idol belongs to Solas. His current quest has been to locate the idol for whatever reason. Perhaps Solas cares about this idol so much because it is one of the only things that can truly defeat him. For further context, in the Hunt of the Fellwolf Codex, Inquisitor Ameridan killed a great canine beast with a mysterious fade-touched idol. This idol was the only thing that could, quote, prove the monster's doom. Perhaps this idol from Ameridan's story is the very same Red Lyrium Idol, or perhaps it is just symbolizing the Red Lyrium Idol, and Solas is looking for it because the idol is one of the only things that can truly stop and kill him, just like the beast in the Codex. If Solas were to find this idol before anyone else, he's got full security over his own victory, and no one could even stand against him. In effect, the Red Lyrium Idol could be like a Horcrux or the One Ring. If destroyed or used against him, it could defeat or sunder the Dread Wolf. I would say emphasis on the word sunder, exactly like how Solas sundered the Elven Empire and split the elves' reality in two. What if, ironically, we used the idol to split Solas' reality in two, sundering the Dread Wolf from him? It's an incredibly tinfoily concept, but to me, it's so out there enough for it to potentially work. And it's almost justice given that Solas did split the Elven Kingdom in the first place. Now, if that's not even close to how a mortal can defeat Solas, then I honestly have no clue how we could even defeat him, because even Solas, a highly prestigious Elven mage, couldn't outrightly kill the Evanuris. And as proven by Mafal, when multiple Evanuris got together and tried to kill her, she didn't stay dead for too long. So with all that considered, sorry Vengeful Inquisitors, but I don't actually think we will be able to kill Solas unless we had, I don't know, like a pantheon of evil gods who have beef with Solas and say for reasons unknown they were to actually end up in modern day Phaedus. Vengeful Allies. Okay, so bear with me for this one, but what if we teamed up with a few members of the Evanuris to put an end to Solas? Let's say for whatever reason, say maybe the Veil got destroyed, or there's a tear in the Veil, or the Breach awoke them, or whatever. The Evanuris are in modern day Phaedus, maybe still quite sundered, but they've managed to make it to our new hero because of their quest against the Dread Wolf. And they too want to put a demise to Solas. So, while it doesn't make any sense, they band together with our next hero, facing against the Dread Wolf, with the idea to seal him away in a separate realm for the rest of his days, giving him a taste of his own medicine. As I'm saying this, I do realise the gravity of the situation. You're suggesting we team up with the evilest, horrific elves to ever walk Phaedus' surface? How dare you, Jackdaw? But truth be told, we don't know their side to this story, and I think that matters truly. We do not know why exactly they sought out Mafal's murder, and what happened with the Forgotten Ones and the Titans. Yes, they were in a lust for power. Yes, perhaps they discovered Red Lyrium and the Blight and they became mad. But even so, that's a story that's been told to us by Solas and Mafal. And yes, I suppose a few codexes, but even so, I would very much like to hear their side to this story. I don't believe that they are completely innocent in any part of it, but at the same time, I also have a very bad feeling about Mafal's reckoning. And Solas did literally split the elves' reality, so it's really hard to say who is actually worse than the other. As we also know, one of the plot descriptions of the next Dragon Age regards evil gods having their sights for Phaedus, so it does sound like they're certainly going to have some involvement in the next game's narrative. It just depends if they're actually going to help our new hero out, or if they actually are these evil, drastic gods that Solas has said they are, and instead they just decide to crush our next hero because who are we but a pipsqueak. Even so, I just wanted to throw that one out there because I think defeating Solas isn't going to be an easy task, given the next hero's position. As another tinfoil suggestion, because as you know I am full of them, perhaps Felisan from the Masked Empire could return with another way to defeat Solas. Now, I think Felisan could more realistically join our new hero's party. Felisan is an ancient elf, so maybe he knows of a different way to put an end or make the Dread Wolf surrender. Subverting Solas. Okay, so you did bear with me for that one, but let's just keep the ball rolling. In a completely new and fresh direction, what if the wool was pulled from under our eyes entirely, and Solas needed the next hero's help, and therefore requests that we join him to deal with the Blights, the Evanuris, the Titans, or any other major threats that face Phaedus? Like the plot description said, evil gods have their sights on Phaedus. What if Solas needs assistance in dealing with those evil gods and decides to offer a hand to the next hero? In a way, it would be a massive subversion of Solas' potential fate. I know for a fact no one sees him truly as a villain, because deep down he isn't. He's just a morally complex, misunderstood man, and he's just trying to restore the Elven Kingdom to its glory, considering he was the one responsible for their desolation. Yes, his actions are incredibly horrendous, and what he's willing to do is unthinkable. But what if, through this route of siding with him or him helping us out, we could stop him from destroying the Veil and redeem him a completely different way? We could see his side to the story even further, getting context on the Evanurus and Mafal and the previous war and what happened to the Elven Kingdom for Mafal to be killed in the first place. And with that in mind, the story would be about teaming up with Solas to defeat the Evanurus, a cataclysmic battle against would-be gods. It would be sick, and again does relate to the early plot description of the next game. Succession. Alright, in the complete opposite direction of a subversion, what if we just give Solas what he wants and he actually succeeds and gets his Thanos moment where he can sit down and relax, having fulfilled his scheme? Of course, that would mean that the Veil would be destroyed and Solas will have dealt with the Evanurus somehow and whatever else that would have been released from the Veil's destruction. Thedas will have seemingly burned away, while the elves who followed Solas will have survived. Solas could then lead a new generation of elves that will be able to rise up in this post-Veil world, redeeming and restoring the Elven Kingdom like nothing happened. I'm sure a lot of Solarvelans would be very happy with this conclusion, that Solas can succeed and be happy and just have all of his desires fulfilled. But may I remind you, Solarvelans, that Solas wouldn't have Revelin join him because of what he will become in the process of achieving this reality. Revelin would be left with everyone else in Thedas to burn. He'd rather she die than see the man or beast he will become. While I think Solas will succeed in some ways, like potentially the destruction of the Veil, I don't know if he'll achieve everything he wants, but it's certainly a possible outcome given how ambitious and motivated he is to his cause. Mafal's vengeance. In another direction, something else that may conclude the rebel god's demise is Mafal. So much about Solas and Mafal's relationship is unknown, yet we do know that he cares for her enough to literally sacrifice his kingdom in exchange for stealing away the other elven gods who quote killed her. Most recently, we know that he cares for her and her opinion, yet he stands alone and is not bound to her. For example, she disapproved of Solas giving his orb to Corypheus and shared that disappointment in their final exchange. Even so, Solas was only able to rise as the Dread Wolf to continue his scheme because of Mafal. If she wasn't willing to sacrifice an aspect of her power, then Solas would be seeking another option to follow up with his plan. But Mafal seemingly would like Solas to succeed to some extent, otherwise she wouldn't have given him her power. The questions are, what exactly does she want from him and which part in his scheme does she want him to fulfill? We know that Mafal seeks a reckoning that will shake the very heavens. She has a conquest of vengeance to wrought. I imagine she's referring to the Evanurus and granting them a final death. If so, perhaps she wants the Veil to be destroyed. I am not quite sure. Maybe she wants Solas to rise as the Dread Wolf so he can kill the Evanurus for her. Again, I'm just speculating. Regardless, she has enabled Solas to follow up with this plan. But given her vengeful ambitions, I wonder if eventually her motivations will become a hindrance to Solas. All we know right now is that Solas is following a scheme with the best intentions for his people, whereas Mafal hasn't been coy about her plan of sheer vengeance. Perhaps their motivations will become entangled and we'll see both gods contradicted. In any event, Mafal certainly has a key to play in Solas's fate. Rebirth. As foreshadowed in Solas's loyalty quest, all new fitted for her, what if somehow Solas was actually defeated, yet instead of dying, his purpose changed, or he was reborn, exactly like his wisdom spirit friend? In this regard, Solas would still live on, yet fundamentally he'd be a very different person. While not the same, this reborn Solas could settle down with Revelin, or they could realize their plan of mass genocide maybe isn't the best route to restore the elves. Maybe they could focus on the modern elves and rebuilding what they can be going forward instead of being so stuck in the past. I feel like this approach would be a happier solution. Once more with the Doctor Who references, but quite like the human 10th Doctor in the ending of Journey's End. This reborn Solas is still Solas, but at the same time he's different enough, and that way he can change and become a better person. And finally, dying alone. So if fan service isn't on the table and we're not going to get a happy Revelin ending or a rebirth or any of this stuff, perhaps Solas should just succumb to his greatest fear and just die alone. Sounds very harsh, I know, but I feel like if Solas is going to become a scary, impossible threat with the intention of saving the elves and destroying everyone else in Thedas, and if there's no redemption or forgiveness for him, then perhaps dying alone is the best fit for Solas. He said it himself, he's walking the journey of death. This means that death awaits those who surround him. Eventually, that should catch up to him and he should die alone, having attempted or succeeded with his scheme. As much as I love Solas, this would be the most poetic justice for someone who wants to literally commit mass genocide. Be that as it may, there are many things that could be in store for Solas. Will he become red Lyrian possessed in the process and live out his days as a recluse? Will he become too prideful to the point where he's naive and reckless? Could the old gods or the untainted gods have a part to play in his fate? What about the Evanurus? I'm sure they will want to shackle him him up in his own eternity of torment? Or will his trust for Mafal get the better of him? There are so many potential fates for Fen'Harel. Let me know down below what you are thinking about Solas going forward in the next game. What will his fate be at the end of Dragon Age? But until the next one, why not check out my blog, become a channel member or a patron to join my wonderful Dragon Age Discord. You are already in the right place for all your Dragon Age news and speculation. I have been Jackdaw, and I should go wahoo-whoa, wahoo-whoa.